Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I will be making a never-ending card, also called an infinity card, and I'll be featuring the Not Too Shabby box of the month for May 2024. So without further ado, let's make this. Okay, so my card's going to be A2 in size, but you can really do this with any size card that you want. The trick is that you want to take essentially whatever size card you want to make, you want that size panel. So this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Then I want to score vertically a quarter of this panel in, which is 1 1/16 of an inch. Now the way I get 1 1/16 is I just nudge it over about half of the distance of one of my tick marks, which is 1/8 of an inch, and then I score at 1/8. And then what I do is I line up that first score line anywhere on my track, and I score 2 1/8 away from that. So you're gonna have in that middle section, the middle section between your score lines will be half of the card. So then with the second panel, I want to rotate that. So instead of scoring along the short edge, now I will score along the long edge. So this is the 5 1/2 inch edge, and 1/4 into 5 1/2 is 1 3/8 of an inch. So I want to score at 1 3/8 of an inch. And then I am going to rotate this and score it at 1 3/8 of an inch again. And this too will result in the middle section between the score lines measuring half of the length of that edge, which is 2 3/4 of an inch. Now, I'm actually going to score my paper on both the front and the back, because with the never-ending card, it's going to fold back and forth and back and forth, and so the softer you can make your cardstock, and this is 100-pound cardstock, the easier your mechanism will actually move. So I do want to go ahead and fold these, and later we're going to give them a really, really good burnish, but these aren't done yet. We still have to actually cut both of these panels in half. So the direction that you cut is important. You want to cut orthogonal to your score lines. So that's 90 degrees from your score lines. Here, my score lines are running left to right, so I want to cut top to bottom. So if your score line is horizontal, you want to cut vertically, just like that. And same here, so these were vertical. Now I want to actually cut on the horizontal, and I want to cut it directly in half. So this panel is 2 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/4. Both of them are the same size. And then the other two panels measure 2 1/8 wide by 5 1/2 tall. So those are the 4 pieces that we have. Now we have to actually connect all 4 of these pieces so they form our A2 size card. Now we've got score lines in there because that's where this card needs to be able to fold and bend back and forth. So when I go to put down some glue to attach these panels, I want to make sure that I am never putting glue beyond the score lines of just this section that overlaps in each of the 4 corners here. So for example, the panel that I'm marking up, I don't want to put any glue above that score line. And what I did was I took the panel that will get glued on top of this, and as a reference, I gave myself a tick mark where that score line will be. And if it helps you, because it definitely helps me, but I'm also doing it for camera purposes, I just like to squiggle in or shade in the area that is safe to put glue. And then once I have the first two kind of figured out, I can just transfer those pencil marks onto the other side. And what you'll end up with is safe zones for where to apply your adhesive in each of the 4 corners. And now that we have that clearly kind of marked, I can start to actually assemble and put the never-ending card together. This is definitely one of the cards where I prefer, even though it ends up being bulky and you have odd shapes, I definitely prefer to actually glue everything together rather than decorate the panels. Because with the never-ending card or the infinity card, there's so many different iterations of the form that the impossible or the infinity card can take, just depending on how you've flipped it, how you've turned it. And so it's really helpful to actually see what those combinations are and actually see which panels are visible and which aren't. And in particular, which are visible at the same time, because once you start turning this, it's going to result in sometimes a section will be visible on one flip and on another flip as well. And sometimes it's visible in full, sometimes it's only partially visible. So for me, it's just a little bit more helpful to actually be operating this card and decorating as I go. So once you put these panels on, one of the things that you want to try to do as well as you can is really get things to butt up against each other, line up nice and square with each other, and not overlap at all. My cardstock is always just a little bit off of 8.5 by 11. It's actually always like a smidge longer than 11. So I'm going to just trim off that little sliver. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to exercise this, start to really train the card so that it folds back and forward the way that it needs to operate. And as I fold, you might want to give your glue a little bit of time to really dry, but my glue is pretty quick grabbing, so it was dry enough to do this. But if you're finding that your pieces are moving, especially if you're using a liquid adhesive, definitely give it some time to dry. But I'm gonna just fold, and as I fold, I will burnish it really well. It just helps to really soften that edge, give it a nice, crisp, clean fold. And the more you flip these and turn them, the easier everything's gonna flow. But see how it's catching a little bit? That's because some of this isn't 100% lined up correctly. There's like a little bit of overlap. Maybe some pieces are just like a smidge bigger than they need to be. And that's okay, because you can save it, just trim a little bit off. So I just took this off camera, I took it to my guillotine, my little mini one, and I just took a fly's eyelash off here and there. Wherever it was getting caught, I just trimmed just that little sliver off. You don't need much because you don't want a gap, but you just need enough so that that cardstock isn't overlapping. And that way, when you continue to exercise the mechanism by folding it back and forth, it all goes smoothly. None of those edges are getting caught on each other. Now, the fun part of decorating is that there's so many different kind of iterations of the never-ending card that you can decorate. And so as you flip, as you kind of operate the card, it reveals sort of another combination of panels. And I'm not going to show all of my decorating because a lot of this is going to be up to you and your taste of like how much of a margin you like to see on these individual panels. With the A2 card, I feel like some of these sections are so small that if I left a wider margin of the card base showing, then you'd hardly see any of the pattern paper. So I went with super thin margins all around. But here you can see it's operating a lot more smoothly. I've got the second flip here. And so all I do is I like to use, this is great for a scrap buster too, because you have all sorts of different sizes of little panels and none of the pieces are all too big. So really great. So all I do is I just kind of have little scraps that I want to use up, and I just make little pencil marks, little tick marks for where I want to cut it. Now, here's one thing I did want to show because it turned out kind of neat and I wanted to record it. But there's a stamp in one of the 3 stamp sets that you get in the box of the month that has this really, really small kind of spray of lavender. And there's several different lavender plants, but this one was a great size for this area. And what I wanted to show doing was, first I'm using some removable Scotch tape to mask off anywhere that I don't want to get ink. And then I will stamp fully a nice clean impression, but without cleaning it off and without re-inking, I stamp 1 or 2 more additional times. And what that results in is it makes it feel like it's a more lush, a more full lavender plant because you've got a little bit of that ghosting, that second generation stamping, which is kind of cool. And then you don't have to worry about really, if it's overlapping, it's okay because it's meant to, and it actually makes it look more full and more interesting. So here's a final close-up look of each of the sort of iterations that you can get, and look at how much space there is to decorate. I like to be selective with, which panels I cover with pattern paper. Some of them I leave blank just so that there's a little bit of white space. This is the back of the card. So that is a good spot to maybe sign your card, write a little bit of a message. But you can see how fun you get these 4 different iterations as you flip and fold and, exercise or operate this really fun, never-ending card. Really fun, quick, easy card to make, and really actually takes more time to decorate it than to create the mechanism. I hope that you enjoyed this video today. I do believe the box of the month is sold out, but you can put your name in for the wait list if you would like to subscribe next month. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye!